Hello, welcome back. This is Jeff Byers and this is Andy255, and we are now going to finish up with the simulation of our Rube Goldberg machine. This is what we have so far. So let's go ahead and get started. So the simulation should be pretty straightforward. I already know that I want to add hinges. Those are the hinges that I'm going to be using, and then from there we'll see what happens. See how everything works. Right, because I have not actually simulated this yet, this will be fun to actually watch how I problem solve these things out, and I actually want you to see that type of thing happen, so you can problem solve your own stuff. Right, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to add passive rigid bodies to the pieces that I want to have passive rigid on. So I'm going to select the wall by itself, fields and solvers, and I'm going to go to passive rigid body. So I'm going to create that, and then I'm just going to click on this guy right here. I'm going to hit the 4 key so I can see through it. I'm going to hit the G key. When I do that, a little star pops up. You probably didn't see that. There it is, right there. When I get closer, it just kind of disappears, but when I get farther away, you can see it. So I can see that that actually has a passive rigid body on it. Okay, so I want those two to be passive rigid bodies. Anything that's going to stay put and not move is going to be passive rigid body. Okay, so let's go back to 5. I want that will not move. Okay, so I'm going to hit the G key. I'm going to hit the 4 key so I can see through it. I'm going to hit the G key on that one, and sometimes it shows up, sometimes it doesn't. But if I go into Control A, you can see that ramp has now been locked up. Okay, so it can no longer be animated. It's been locked up. So I'm going to hit the G key on that one too. Okay, I'm going to go back to 5. And anything else that's not going to move. Okay, well, this is not going to move. Okay, but we want it to be dynamic, so we want the balls to hit this and then roll around. So that will be a passive rigid body as well. So I'm going to hit the G key on that. Again, just kind of pay attention over here to the right hand side under the channel editor. These will be, the balls will be active rigid body. This will be active rigid body. These domino pieces, if that's what you want to call them, I just call them wood pieces, those are going to be active rigid bodies. This piece right here is not. That's going to be passive, so I'm going to hit the G key on that. Again, what I'm doing is I'm just hitting the G. It remembers what I did, the last thing I did, which is which is passive rigid body. So I'm going to go ahead and hit the G key on that. These will be hinge constraints. Okay. This will be a hinge constraint. This will be active rigid body. This will be hinge constraint, and this will be hinge constraint. This will be a passive rigid body because it's not going to move. So let's add G to that. And these are going to be passive rigid bodies, so I'm going to hit G for every one of those. And that one. Okay. And so everything else, that's going to be hinge, that's going to be active rigid body, basically. So let's go back. Now we're going to do all active rigid bodies now. So we'll start with 1. And the reason why I'm not doing them all at the same time is I've had issues in the past, and just as a word of warning, you could probably click on everything in here and do active rigid body, every single thing. The problem with that is that, number one, once you do that, they're all gonna follow the same exact attributes. So let's say the tall one starts to fall over, and we don't want it to fall over, and we have to put, make it more massive. Well, the problem is every single one of these will share the same attributes, and I don't want that. Okay, so I want everything individual, and that actually helps with the simulation, it'll be a little bit faster. So I'm going to go to field solvers and go into active rigid body. Okay, get that one done, and then I'm just going to hit the G key for every single one of those. Okay, and we're not doing that one. We're going to do this on these active rigid body. Okay. Okay, keep going. Doesn't take that long. We don't have a lot. If we had thousands of these, this could be a real problem, but it's not a problem. Okay. Anything else? We have that ball here. Let's hit the G key, and then we have one more down here. We hit the G key. Alright, so now I've got the rigid bodies. Now I got to think about, okay, what's next? We got phases here. We did the passive rigid body, we did the active rigid body, and now I've got to do the hinges. So I'm going to add a hinge to this. Select the object. Again, I think we've talked about this before. If you have any issues at all, it's probably because you didn't delete by type history, you didn't center pivot, and you didn't freeze transformations. So probably should open up a new version before you started adding active and passive rigid bodies. You should be doing that anyway. You should be saving your work before you do any simulation. Those of you that jump through and don't pay attention to saving before you start adding rigid bodies are going to run into all kinds of problems, and you're going to have to start over again. And just imagine if you had to model all this and start over again. You're lucky you can just bring this in and just kind of set dress it again. That's basically what you guys did, just duplicate and set dress. So just imagine if you're doing the mousetrap and you forget to save your scene before you do simulations, then you'll have to start over and model everything. Now I'm not saying you can't go back. In fact, you can easily get rid of rigid bodies, but there's always some residual artifacts or coding that does not get rid of, that can cause problems and eventually corruption. So simulations, or especially dynamic simulations, get corrupt pretty quickly. So make sure you save your scene before you add simulations. You can always come back and you won't lose so much time. So just keep that in mind. And if you want to get a rigid body off, constraints are a little different. Just kind of take you through that. So if you go to edit, you can go to delete by type history, and we also have all the way down rigid bodies. Okay, but then we got constraints. Okay, now if those two don't work, you have something else going on there, then go to delete by all by type, and then you can go down to rigid bodies here and rigid constraints. So if I have a hinge constraint I want to get rid of, I can't do it here. It won't work. Constraints won't work. So I've got to go down to delete by all by type, and then you can go down into rigid bodies and rigid constraints. Okay, and we also have end ridges for end particles and stuff like that. So that's how you can get rid of those. Again, sometimes I've found, I've used these a lot, that doesn't always clear everything out and can cause some issues in the long run. So just be aware of that. Okay, so let's add a hinge. Let's go into fields and solvers, and let's go into hinge constraint. Let's go ahead and just reset everything. We're going to do hinge. We're not going to do any orientation. I can change that later, and click create. And there's our first hinge constraint. Okay, there it is. Let's go ahead and hit the 4 key so I can see through it. And there's my hinge constraint. Now I already know I want that to be pulled back. So I'm just going to go ahead and pull that back. If I'm going to go to the side view, it's probably a better look at that. And there we go. And just kind of get that set up right there. That's where I want it. Alright, so the next thing we're going to do is, what else is going to be a hinge constraint? I love hinge constraints. They're my favorite. So I'm going to click on that guy. I'm going to do a hinge constraint on that. I'm just hitting the G key. I love my G key. There we go. G, and we like a hinge constraint on this as well. Okay. The beauty of this hinge constraint, we can put it anywhere we want, which is really cool. So let's go back in here and hit the F key and just kind of place that where we want it. Alright, so that should be pretty close to the middle. That's what we want. And we can change that if we want. Now, if we don't like where it sets it up, we can offset that again. I can delete that if I don't like the offset. Okay, so we'll see what happens. And then we've got a hinge constraint on this one as well. You can see where the center pivot is. So I'm going to hit the G key on that. I don't really like that, of course. I'm going to leave it like that, which is kind of cool. It's funny, you can have it out there, but it's kind of taken in consideration of this, which is fine. I'll just leave it as is. I think it's right in pretty close to the center of that. Yeah. I could pull it down a little bit, but I'll leave it like that. It's not going to hurt anything. And what else? I think that's it. I think we have everything. So let's hit the 5 key again. So everything's set up perfectly. Well, as close as it can get. We have no idea. This is the first simulation I've tried with this setup. I haven't even done a dry run, so that's okay. I want you to see me tweak things out, and then see how I can problem solve them out, and then that'll help you guys with your final piece, which you'll be on your own, which is the mousetrap. You'll be building that from scratch yourself. Now, I do want to let you know that you may use any of my elements here, but you cannot use the setup I have here. You can take my elements and use them if you'd like, duplicate them and add them to your scene. I'm okay with that. But you will have to absolutely add a material and texture them. Now, if you want to render them, you need to kind of consider what you're going to be doing with your mousetrap. Then when you get to that point with your mousetrap, you're going to want, if you're using V-Ray, you're going to have to use the materials from V-Ray and use the setup for that. If you want the 20 points, you're going to have to and render everything out. You need to get it looking really good. You can get up to 20 points, but your stuff has to look really sharp, and textures have to look good, clear. So if you do render out, just make sure you keep that in mind. I'm very picky about extra credit. What it looks like, to me, it needs to be pretty portfolio ready. The renders need to be fantastic and look good to get that full 20 points. So if you do your mousetrap and you're doing materials and textures, think about your renderer, which renderer you're going to use. If you're going to use Arnold, I would recommend doing the PBR setup, that what I've been teaching my students, and then V-Ray, just be aware of those materials are a little different. So make sure you follow what V-Ray needs to have if you render there, and I'm okay with that. So anyway, the only thing I ask is that you keep these transparent in the simulation, in your mousetrap too as well. So if you use these pieces or any of these pieces, make sure they are textured. So this would be like glass, a little like 50% transparent glass. So keep that in mind when you're doing Arnold. If you have questions about rendering with Arnold, I'm happy to help you with that. So let's move on. So we're ready for all of the gravity now. So all of the pieces that we have here have no gravity attached. So let's go ahead and select one thing and add gravity, and we'll do the rest. So we kind of know which gravity. We can add gravity to all the pieces. So I'm just going to hit the Q key, and I'm going to go right down the list. Again, you know how to add gravity to pieces if you miss them, right? You can go to Windows, you can go to Relationship Editors and Dynamic Relationships, and that'll open that up. Okay. If you have a lot of, and we'll talk about this later, if you have a lot of dominoes or something like that and you want to change some attributes you know, the rigid body attributes of that, or any of the attributes. As far as bounciness and all that stuff, you can go to Windows, General Editors, and you can go down to the attribute spreadsheet, and that will open it up. And we've talked about that before, but if you missed that, that's how you can do multiple objects and change them at the same time. Let's say bounciness, you know, or static friction or something like that. Okay, so with that said, let's go ahead and get started. Let's add gravity to as many things as we need. So we need that, we need this, and we need gravity to all of these. Just doing one at a time. I've had some issues with marquee selecting when adding fields. That can be a real problem. Sometimes it sees it, sometimes it doesn't. Okay, gravity on that. Gravity on that. Oh, we need gravity on these two as well. Gravity on this. And that is it, I believe. So we add gravity to all these pieces that we have here, anything that is moving pieces. Okay. Alright, so go ahead into fields and go into gravity. Let's go ahead and do the option box and just go ahead and reset settings and create. Okay, next thing we got to do is we need a lot of frames. So let's start with 1,000. That's a lot, I know. And then let's go into the little guy here running away from a gear. The preferences, play every frame, 24 frames per second times 1. Yes. You got the scale down. We should be good to go. Let's just see what we get. Okay. And already those balls are moving super slow, which I think is funny. Okay, and we're at 500 frames. That's going to take forever to get anything done. I don't know if we're running at full speed or not. Let's take a look at what I'm running at. So let's go in here, display, heads up display, frame rate. There we go. Okay, well, it says I'm running at 24 frames a second. That's terrible. Okay, let's see where it goes here. And they're nice and bouncy. Okay, so alright, so with that said, we have some things to change right away. So with those, friction, it's killing us. Bounciness is kind of killing us. So let's just, on these pieces right here, let's go ahead and do a 0.1 on that. So I'm going to do that to this one. Now there's not a whole lot. And let's go ahead and do 0.1 since we know what we need to do with the, and the friction I'm thinking is way too high. I think I'm going to go to 0.01. You want a little bit of friction, and the same thing with this, 0.01 on that. Just to get it going here. And 0.01. And let's take a look now. Now we got the bounciness and the friction rates on those. Let's get this one too. Alright. Now, because you're probably asking yourself, why don't I go into the spreadsheet? It's not even worth the trouble. It's not. We have 3 items, okay? But if I was going to do all these, then absolutely. You know, I'm not sure where I want to be with this, or even with this. This could be the same thing. Okay, so I'm going to do 0.1 on that, and 0.01 on this. I want to slide right through. I want it to be pretty quick. Alright, so let's take a look what we have so far. Those two are just not, probably too much gravity, I guess, maybe. The drop is good. And see that, you see the hinges fall, that one fell. That's kind of interesting. Look at that. Of course I knew that was going to fall, but it's sooner than I wanted. So alright, so what I'm going to do here is with the balls, you know, again, this is the first time I've simulated this before. So you can see that in the rigid bodies on here, we've got a couple things here. So we have to keep the static friction, and it's not that much, but let's go back to 0.01. 0.01. And at this point, I think I do want to do all these at once, because that's going to be a pain. So Windows, General Editors, Attribute Spreadsheet. Let's open this up. Come on. Grab a hold of that. Here we go. Make that a little bit bigger so we can see. Rigid bodies. There we go. Spin impulse dampening. There's that one I just did. So static friction. Let's go ahead and do 0.01 on that. And then dynamic friction. You can see I've started. And 0.01 on that. Bounciness. Let's do 0.1. There we go. So it works really good. I'll just keep that up. Anything else we need to do, I'll just have it over here. I can always pull it up when I want to. I don't have anything selected, so it won't show anything. So you have to have something selected to show. Let's try it again. There we go. Now they're rolling a little bit better. At least a couple of them are. Uh-oh. Rolling too good. It's awesome. Oh, we need to back on that. Yep. So those are things you gotta think about. It's just, they're just going they're going wherever they want to go. Okay. So, and those are the issues that you may find that you need to fix. Okay. So I could put it back on this. You have to be kind of careful how you do this now. So what I could do is I could take this little guy here and just use that as a back. I'm just going to do Control D a minute. Control D. Alright. Alright. Let's see if that'll work. And just use that as a stopper. Go to the side view here and hit the F key. And just rotate that in place. It doesn't have to be perfect. Again, we're just using this to stop these. In fact, I can probably go in there and move that in a little bit more so it fits a little bit better. And I gotta remember to and add a passive rigid body. Okay, it says it already contains it. So, did I take it off this one? Let's take a look. Alright, let's see if it will work. I might have to create one from scratch. Alright, so we needed a stopper. Again, we could use that barrier, but the problem is with that barrier, I'd be able to stop it here, but then it's infinity all the way down. Oh man, that first one just is going way too fast. Misses it entirely. The rest of them aren't going. Oh, see, yep, that's the problem. It says it's on there, but it's not. So I've got to go in there, and those are the issues. You cannot duplicate those types of bodies. So let's get rid of that. It still works down here, otherwise that ball would fall through, right? Okay. And it's nice that these pieces are still standing. A lot of times when I do these simulations, the dynamic dominoes just start falling by themselves after a while. So that's always a problem. So let's go ahead and create a cube. Bring it up. Okay, and I'm just going to fit that in place here. And just rotate that. And I want to scale it up a little bit, so, and scale it in like that a little bit. So I catch that one that flies off, tries to get away from me. Let's go to the top view. There we go. And now I can just scale it in there. I'll go ahead and add that existing ramp texture on it. Alright, and now we're going to do a passive rigid. There we go. See, it's all set up now. Let's try it again and see how it goes. Guarantee that first one's not getting away. Not this time. He's rolling pretty good though. I like that. There you go. Cool. Oh! He's rolling so fast. Alright. He misses that entirely. Okay. Which tells me that I need to bring this up a little bit so the back of that catches that. So let's go in here and move this up. That. And hopefully that will stop it. Let's see how far we can go. I don't want it to go too high because then it messes me up here. Let's see how that goes. Trial and error. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to start all these, for some reason, start all these a little bit closer. Kind of move them so they're not, you can't have interpenetration with these, so I'm just kind of separate these a little bit. Cannot be touching each other. Let's get these rolling closer together. Let's try that. Alright, so here we go. Oh, got stuck on each other. That's the problem. Interpenetration right there. They worked themselves out. That's the first one. I like that one. Get rid of the rest of them. They really aren't doing it. And this guy here is just flipping around and he's gonna get. Oh, he caught it. Nice. See, it's the fun. I know you guys aren't having fun watching this, but when you're doing it yourself, it's pretty fun. Alright, so with this, let's go back into attributes. And rigid bodies, dampening with that little guy here. We're going to do something like 4. So let's do that. Oh, it's a lot slower. I'm going to have to turn that hinge off. Okay. And animate the hinge on and off. Let's try. Let's try 6. Otherwise, I might have to put the hinge in the center. I mean, that's not bad. It's just going to hit it, and yeah, that might work. We can try that. Let's try that before we go and do anything crazy here. Let's do dampening of maybe 1 so it doesn't fly around. But this right here we could probably just put in the center of it. Right about there. So if the ball hits it, it'll get, if it rolls, it should pull that down and then dump in there. So we'll see how that works. Again, this is trial and error, guys. This is where all the time's going to be spent. Oh, okay. So it sees the it sees it, and it's just too heavy. The rest of these are going like slow, but now they're gaining some momentum. Yep, just not enough time. Alright, so what I'm going to do is I'll really focus on that one ball that we have. And this is this guy right here. The rest of them, I think I'm going to get rid of. Don't need them. Alright, let's get rid of those. Okay. And let's just focus on that. And with this, it was flopping back, not down. So I suppose I can animate that, and you can. You can animate the hinges any way you like. So at frame 1, let's set a keyframe. Let's play this animation simulation. It's gonna hit it. Oh, there it goes. Oh man, that was so close. That was so close. I'm okay with that. That's pretty cool. That was very, very, very close. I think we needed to pull this over a little bit like that, and that would probably work. What do I have on this? It's a rigid body, and then, yeah, it should, yeah, bounciness is off. So once I get to that point, we're good. We're almost there. And sometimes yours might work right away, you know? I may not have to fuss with it very much. But right now I'm just kind of going through this. Okay. Oh, so close. Oh, it even hit one of those guys. Oh no. Look at that. Whoa, whoa, whoa. It's gonna fall down. Maybe it's gonna fall down. Bam. Wow. Okay. Cool. Alright, so what I need to do is probably pull this back. And the hinge. So let's do that. Pull that back. Alright, cool. Alright. Oh, that's not good. Why did it do that? One little thing, and it did this. Okay, that's not cool. Oh, I see what happened. Oh, my keyframe. That's what it was. So let me stop this. Alright, so that's keyframe, so I gotta get that keyframe off of there. Delete. Here we go. Try that. There you go. Oh. Okay, let's see what happened here. It bounced. Let's go on here. See what that bounciness is. Yep. Let's go to. I don't want it to bounce it off. 0.01. I don't want it to bounce at all on that. Alright, so I'll probably cut this. If you see like splices, so you don't have to sit here and wait for that part of it, I'll be cutting those parts out. The simulation parts. And just come back and start. There we go. It's in! Yay! Finally. There she goes. Now she's getting some momentum. Excellent. It should shoot out of there pretty quickly and knock one of those guys down. Hopefully the mass is enough. Boom. Oh yeah. Nice. Perfect. Ah, just need more time. Okay. So I'll give it more time. Let's do 2000 frames. Alright, so at this point I'm going to go ahead and pause the video, stop it, and I'll come back and we'll see how this works, how everything else is working, and go from there. But I'll see you in the next video.